So today we're going to be talking about homosexuality and kind of like why the Catholic Church says what it says. And I think a lot of what the church says is very misrepresented in like the media and in most people's minds. And so I've heard from a lot of just like friends, people I know who are homosexual, that they realized they had these like attractions, and so they felt like the church hated them, and they had to leave. And so I know that's a common idea, and so we're going to kind of talk about like what does the church actually say, and how does the same-sex attraction actually fit into the Catholic Church. So before we start on those specifics, we're going to talk more about like what is like love as a whole. What are like some objective points that are in every kind of love. And so I think the first point is that there's a few truths, right? So in our bodies, that we are body and soul. There's actually not a separation of that. So whatever I do with my body affects my soul, and vice versa. What I do with my soul affects my body. This is why, like when we look at the act of sex, like it's our bodies, but it's also like our souls being entwined. So like there's really not a separation in that. And then also looking at the different kinds of love. In the English language, we're kind of gypped because you say love and you're like, I love my friend and I love God. But these are like very, very different levels of love. Or I love my friend and I love my husband. And it's just a different kind of seriousness or different kind of intensity, I guess. So the three different kinds of loves are filial, eros, and agape. So if I pronounce those wrong, so sorry. But filial is like brotherly love. And so this is like me to a friend. Eros is like erotic love, romantic love. So this is like me to a husband that I don't have yet. And then agape is unconditional love. This is like the love of God, like just forever love, like through and through. And so to know those different like levels of love are really good, so we can better put our relationships into which category they go. And then also that truth is objective. And so this is just a very like quick point that actually says like if there's a one standard truth, or I guess in this talk we're going to kind of talk about is there one standard truth or does it change depending on our subject, right? So is there a truth? So I'm a girl. Regardless of what you guys believe, it doesn't really change what I am. And so that truth is objective. I actually don't change like my sexuality. Anyways, so to say that there are objective truths in relationships and in love, and so there are things that are true. That doesn't actually change depending on the person. They're objective truths. Okay, so those are our 3 points. So we have, I need my notes again. So we have body and soul are intertwined, different kinds of love, those 3 different kinds, and then that truth is objective. So remember those 3, and Michael will discuss those a little bit more. And then there's also 4 F's of love. So every love has to have all 4 of these components. So every single relationship, if it's a healthy, full relationship, has to be free, full, faithful, and fruitful. So free, I actually have to be free to date a guy. So if I'm like dating this other guy, and this other guy asks me out, I'm not free. I'm actually taken. So you have to be free to fully like be available to give yourself. So then you also have to be full. So when I say like I love you, I actually have to like say like in marriage, like I say to my husband like I love you. That has to be everything. It has to be full. It has to be everything about me is yours. That's why like I changed my name to his last name. Everything mine is yours. It's full. I give everything to you. There's nothing really held back. It has to be faithful. So if I get married, like then it's me and my husband, and we are together. I am faithful to him. This is like sacred. It's like something that's like me totally to you, you totally to me, forever. Like we promise each other that. And then it has to be fruitful. So there's actually between this relationship, there's something that comes out of it. There's a life. There's either that's in like a child, like literal life, or it's just like a very fruitful love. So say you're dating, you're not quite on the married scale yet. Every relationship is 3. It's Trinitarian, if you will. So it's me, this other person, and something else. So what is that something else? In marriage, that could be me, this other person, and a child. Or even in dating, still in marriage too, is me, this other person, and the community. So this fruitfulness also comes in how you love your community. And you see this in relationships, like, you know those relationships you're around, like, the couple, and you're like, oh my gosh, they won't get, like, off of each other, and they're so annoying to be around, and you just want to leave. they're not being fruitful. But then you also have those relationships that are like really healthy and really beautiful that you're like, I actually have to be told when to leave because I like think y'all are little. And so like that's fruitful. Like they're actually giving you a fruit of their love, and the fruit of their love is like extended love. Anyway, so those are 4 F's: free, full, faithful, and fruitful. And you got your 3 points, and I will hand it over to my friend Michael, who to take it from here. So please welcome Michael.
Hello, Texas State crew. My name is Michael, and for those of you that don't know me, I am an alumni of Texas State, okay? Graduated 2012, go Bobcats, all right? Currently right now I'm attending St. Edward's University, and I'm pursuing a degree in counseling, so if any of you want to talk afterwards, that's what I do. Okay, good. So basically what I want to talk about today, okay, is I want to give a different side of the story, okay? So let me go ahead and reintroduce myself, okay? My name is Michael Azrani, and I'm a Catholic son of God who also happens to be gay, all right? So when I say that to a lot of people, the first reaction I get from anyone that isn't Catholic, right? Because obviously, if we're Catholic, we know love. That's the center of all things, right? Love. But the people who don't know that are like, what? How are you gay and Catholic? That doesn't make any sense to me, right? Because they know only what the world has told them about what it means to love God and to be gay, right? So there are a few little, precursors that I want to give to this talk, okay? Number 1, we're not going to answer every single question you have today, all right? If we do this talk well, you're probably going to have more questions than you came in with, okay? We cannot possibly talk about the entirety that is the gospel in even our lifetime, all right? If you're living your faith out correctly, you should be asking these questions and thinking about these things until the day you die, all right? That's a good sign that you're living your faith correctly. So, we're probably not going to answer every single question you have. Again, afterwards, feel free to come talk to me if there's anything specifically you want to know, okay? Number 2, for those of you that struggle with this sort of idea, this teaching of the church, the one thing that I want, the one little bit of advice that I want to give you that helped me, okay, was to be open to it, okay? If you're sitting here right now saying, you know what, this isn't the truth, I refuse, I just don't believe it, and it's wrong, and the Catholic Church needs to catch up with the times, right? Of course, God needs to conform his will to us, doesn't he? Right? No. What I ask of you to do is, if you're sitting here and you're struggling with this, find a place in yourself where you can say, okay, God, and you might even need to qualify it, but if you can say, all right, God, I can believe this. This can be the truth. I'm open to this being the truth, but it's got to make sense first. Even if you give the Holy Spirit that little bit of room, you'll be surprised about what he can do for you, okay, and the understanding he can bring you, all right? So if you just open yourself up to that, open yourself up to the Holy Spirit to come and bring to you that truth, bring to you that understanding, right, then he will, all right? But you have to be open to it. If you're not open to it, I can tell you all the logical things in the world. I can make it make as much sense as it possibly can, but you know what? You're not going to hear it. The only thing you're going to hear is what supports your belief if you're not open to this. So come into this talk with an open heart, okay? Open heart, open mind, right? Good. So where I want to start for you is, I'll start at my testimony, all right? So growing up, I did not grow up Catholic, right? I did not grow up as anything, all right? I thought of God as just some abstract concept. I knew there was this great guy named Jesus who loved you, right? That's all I knew about Christ, okay? And that's all that I really grew up with until I was 16 years old. When I was 16, like most teenagers do, you fall into hard times, okay? And obviously, I couldn't handle all those hard times by myself. I needed to give it up to something bigger than me. I couldn't help myself, my parents couldn't help me, but who could? God. So that's when I decided, okay, let's give this God thing a try. So I converted when I was 16, all right? Up to this point, I was gay, all right? That's who I was. I've been gay since I can remember, all right? For as long as I can remember. Ever since before I even knew what gay was, all right? I knew that I was. All this time before I had even converted, okay? And the only thing I knew was that people didn't like it. For whatever reason, people didn't like it. But it's one point that I do want to make. I've always known, okay? There was never a time where I didn't know. Even when I was young, like I said, before I knew what gay was, I always knew. I wanted to hold hands with the little boy, not the little girl. Right? So that was always very strange to me. And the world let me know very quickly that that was not okay, all right? Enter in my conversion, all right? So like I said, I converted when I was 16. And up to this point, every friend that I had, I'd been pretty open with. You know, I was over being in the closet by the time I was in middle school. Been there, done that, right? So by the time I got into, by the time I converted, I was pretty open about who I was, okay? But there was this big new community of Catholics, right? And I wanted them to like me. So of course, what was my first instinct? Oh, well, they're Catholics, so obviously they hate gay people, so I just won't tell them. I just won't talk about it, right? Because that was my idea, that they were Catholic. They were going to hate me if I told them what I really felt like, what it really was. So I kept that, I kept that from them, just because I wanted them to like me. I wanted these new friends to really care about me, and see me for who I was, not for the sexuality, right? Eventually that got really old, okay? And I simply said, you know what, I'm gay. They asked me, are you sure you don't like guys, Michael? I'm like, yeah, okay, well, I do. Okay, right? And so I told them, and you know what was so surprising? Is even at that young age, where we were just so caught up in everything other than Jesus, right? They still loved me, right? They still accepted me. They still said, I love you, you're my friend. And no, nothing's changed. Yes, we already knew you were gay, come on. Yeah. So I had that moment of clarity. These people love me, okay? So then I come into college, right? And I kind of fall away from my faith a little bit. I put my faith in things other than Christ, and as we all know, every time we do that, then it ends up really, really bad, right? So I kind of struggle my freshman year. I start to live just a life of emptiness, right? And I don't have any Catholic friends. I don't have any faith base. And by the time I come into the CSC, wisdom, excuse me, wisdom. By the time I come into wisdom, I'm real rough around the edges, right? I'm not the most fun person to talk to. Definitely not the most fun person to talk to about Jesus. And what I definitely believe at this point is that, you know what? The Catholic Church is wrong about this. This doesn't make any sense. They need to catch up with the times. No, right? This doesn't make any sense. I don't see why I can't love another person. I love him, right? I have all these feelings for him. Why can't I? So it wasn't until that moment that I allowed myself to be open to the Holy Spirit that movement of Christ through me was able to bring that clarity. And I want to share with you a story of how that happened. This whole time, everyone was telling me, well, of course, Michael, of course you should give this up. Right? It only makes sense. And to me, I was looking at them saying, well, do you know what you're really asking me? Do you know what you're really asking me to give up? Do you really know how simple you're boiling this down to? Do you really understand the suffering you are asking me to take without really understanding what you're asking me? And most of the time, people didn't. Most of the people that grew up as Catholics were like, of course this is the truth. They weren't gay. They didn't have to struggle with it. Of course it just made sense to them. For me, it didn't. For me, it was like, this is pain. This is suffering. And you're just expecting me to understand and to do it, right? Well, I had a chance to have this conversation with a really great focus missionary. Those of you that know her, her name is Perla, right? And a really good friend of mine, my friend Amato, right? We sat down together and we were just kind of hashing out all of these concepts that Steph had talked about, right? And really the only thing I really, really needed was for someone to look at me and say, I understand that this hurts. And in that moment that we were just going back and forth about all the nitty-gritty, all the logic, my friend Amato, he stopped and he looked at me and he just started to weep. He wept for me. He wept for this suffering. He wept for this pain. And he said, who am I to tell you this? What right do I have to tell you that this is the truth? You're my friend and I love you and I want nothing more for you than to be happy. But what can I say? What can I do? And so in that moment, I said, okay, God, that's all I need. That's all I needed was someone to look at me and understand that I'm asking of you an incredible pain. God is asking of you to make an incredible sacrifice for him. And that was the moment that I allowed myself to be open. That was the moment that said, okay, God, I can be open to this truth, but it has to make sense first. So then what did I do after that? I started to learn about my faith. I started to get involved. I started at a really great place, for those of you that know it, Theology of the Body. If you're wondering, start there. It's a great place to start, right? But I began to meditate on the Gospels. And I want to stress the importance of that, meditating on the Gospels. you will never understand any of these topics that we talk about, not gay marriage, not abortion, not anything, until you've gone back to the gospel, okay? That is what Pope Francis is telling us to do, all right? Yes, these topics are important, but what do we need to be talking about? We need to be talking about the gospel. And if you ever really want to understand this, go back to it, meditate on it, pray about it, go to Jesus, okay? Because at the end of the day, these things that we're talking about, they're not what we believe as Catholics. They are a product of what we believe. They are a consequence of what we believe. They're a consequence of the gospel, which is a gospel of love, okay? So that's kind of my testimony. That's kind of how I got to where I am, my struggle. And just like any other, gay man, I struggled with my own sin. I still struggle with my own sin. I struggle with the same sorts of sexual sin and temptation that any other man does. A lot of people are like, well, Michael, you're gay, so doesn't it work differently? No, it doesn't, all right? No, I still struggle with that, okay? But the difference is I get back up again, and that's what he wants you to do. So with that being said, I just kind of want to go over a few of the things, just reiterate a few of the things that Steph said, okay? And now, a few of these things were the things that kind of helped me put this whole topic into perspective. So now I'm going to give you a bit of the theology part of it, a bit of the logic part of it, right? So there were those 4 topics, right? And just for those of you that walked in late, I'll go ahead and review them real quickly. The 4 things that helped me be able to become more open to this truth were that 1, truth is objective, not subjective, okay? It's very important. As Catholics, that is what we believe, okay? That there is a black and white truth, all right? With the reality that it exists, whether we like it or not, okay? Number 2, as Catholics, we believe that we're both body and soul at the same time, okay? And that these, very important, that these 2 aspects of our souls reflect truths about one another. So my body, my physical body, reflects truths about my soul, and my soul reflects truths about my body, okay? Number 3, there are, in fact, different kinds of love. And these different kinds of love are a reality. They are not some sort of construct, okay, or some sort of semantic that we've made up. They are a reality. They exist. Okay? And finally, for a relationship to be of God, it must be faithfully given, fruitfully given, fully given, and freely given. Okay? Those things that Steph talked about. So now, excuse me, notes all over the place, notes galore. But first thing I want to talk to you about is the sexual urge bad? Okay? So are sexual urges bad? The answer is no. Your sexual urge is not bad, not in and of itself, okay? The sexual urge is what orients a man to another woman, okay? Or a woman to a man, okay? So it's good, but we can't stop there. And what I want to clarify is that it orients you to the person as a whole, okay? To the masculine parts of man and feminine parts of a woman. Physiological and psychological. But not in the abstract. Okay, that's important. Not attracted to masculinity or femininity in the abstract. You're attracted to a person as a whole who displays aspects of masculinity and femininity. Okay, so that is what the sexual urge is for. It is good. It is not bad, all right? A lot of people think, so we're Catholics, so we have to repress, right? No, it is a good thing. It is a building block, but we can't stop there, okay? Now, another thing I want to talk about is, why is sex outside of marriage bad, all right? This goes for everybody. So why is it bad? If 2 people are both mutually receiving pleasure, what's the problem, right? What is the problem? Well, the short answer, and again, we could talk all year about this sort of thing and still know nothing about it. You're going to have more questions, right? But what's the problem? In this sort of relationship, we're simply seeking pleasure from one another. The focus is on what I receive, okay? Or on what you receive, not on the other person. It's focused on my pleasure, right? So if a relationship is focused on my pleasure, then that's what's holding it together, okay? If that pleasure is gone, what's there left to hold to our relationship, right? What is left to hold it together? Nothing. If our relationships are based simply on pleasure, once that pleasure is gone, so will the relationship, okay? Sorry, everyone, but that's called use, okay? And because we are simply creatures of God, we have an inherent dignity, all right? And that makes it wrong for us to use each other. It makes it wrong for us to make one another a means to an end. We are the ends in and of itself, okay? You are an end. You are not a means to an end. That is why sex outside of marriage is bad, okay? Because you're not making that commitment to say, I sacrifice for you, all right? I sacrifice this bit of my freedom for you. Okay? It's all on what I get. Right? Get in? All that good stuff. Well, in marriage, what makes it so wonderful is that you're letting all those things happen, right? You're fully giving yourself, you're freely giving yourself, you're fruitfully giving yourself. All of them. So I want to think about for a minute, what is the purpose of marriage? Is it to be happy, right? Do we marry because we want to be happy with one another, or we want to be happy? A lot of people are going to tell you yes, but no. No, that's not the purpose of it. Marriage has an end, a natural end. And those of you that are like me, you're going to hear that a lot, and it's going to not make a whole lot of sense to you. But the natural end of the marriage is children. That's the fruit. It's the fruit that you give, right? And that is how marriage is fruitfully given, right? So when I try and love another man, can I be fruitful with him? Right? Remember, my body reflects my soul. My body doesn't complete him in that way. When we put our bodies together, it does not create life. All it creates is pleasure, my pleasure, his pleasure. There's nothing else that can come of that other than my pleasure. No fruit. So if we can't bear fruit, not only am I not being fruitfully, I'm giving myself fruitfully to him, I'm not giving myself fully to him. So in that way, those things can't work. And that's hard to grasp for a lot of people. And it's probably hard to grasp for some of you right now. I still think about it. But that's kind of how the relationship between a man and a man, a woman and a woman can't happen, all right? We can't be fruitful with one another. You're not being able to be fruitful. You can't be fully engaged with one another, okay? So then that boils down to this. Well, so Michael, are you saying that all that it takes to be fruitful is children, and that it really just boils down to the fact that my parts don't match his? And that was the question I had. It's really all about babies. What about the infertile woman, right? What about this couple that can't bear children? What about them? Should they not be allowed to be together? That's what I asked. If you're asking that question right now, again, remember back to our bodies, okay? If you put a man's body and a woman's body together, they match each other, kind of like a puzzle piece, right? They fit together and they create life. Maybe there's some sort of genetic deficiency preventing her from making life, but their bodies still go together. And in the way that their bodies would normally create life, their souls create that fruit, right? So even though they can't create life together, their souls still can. Because remember, your body reflects truths about your soul and vice versa. If you put my body next to another man, no matter how you look at it, no matter what we do, naturally, I cannot create another life. In that same way, neither can my soul be fruitful with his. Okay? Again, my body reflects truths about my soul. So does yours. Okay? So that's a little bit about the testimony of it. And it's broad, and I keep it brief for a reason. Again, I can talk to this all year with you. You could go through this all year, okay, and still not know anything. But that's kind of the theology component. That's a brief glimpse into the theology component. If you want to know more, seek the gospel. That's what I'm going to tell you. But I imagine most of you in this talk right now are Catholic, right? They're trying to live out your vocation, trying to spread the gospel. So now I want to get into how to do that, because that's the real question, right? How do we talk to a gay person about these sorts of things? Because most of them are going to cover their ears and they're not going to listen to you. I want to hear what you have to say, right? They think you hate them. Understandably, the topic of gay is very confusing. It's confusing for us, it's confusing for you. Those of you that aren't gay, you don't understand it, and you know what, that's okay. But the problem in the church today is some of us don't know what to do with gay people who are faithful. You know what I mean? We don't know where to put them, we don't know the place for them. And while that's not true for every diocese, it's definitely an issue in some places. What do we do with gay people of the faith? Where do we put them, right? Are they called to be priests? Are they called to be brothers? Called to be sisters? What do we do? A lot of the times you're going to find that our vocations are pretty narrow. Not all, but I can tell you, speaking from my vocation, my options are the single life, or the single life, right? That's what I got. And so in trying to live out that vocation fully, all right, sometimes the church doesn't know what to do for me. Sometimes they're like, well, we would let you be a missionary, but we don't know how to handle this topic of gay. What do we do with that? We don't have the resources for that. To me, that doesn't make any sense, right? So what do we do with our gay brothers and sisters? I can tell you the one thing we can't do anymore is sweep it under the rug, all right? Gay is here, all right? They just passed a law making marriages recognized in Texas, which on one hand, is good for some people. On the other hand, it's another attack on the war of marriage, okay? As a gay person, I'm here to tell you that it is an attack on marriage, okay? But it's here. It's ready. It's now. We can't sweep it under the rug. And as Catholics, the people with the fullness of truth, it is our responsibility to go out there and fight that battle. You know the truth of love. You're the ones that need to stop it, right? Because all this time, all your gay brothers and sisters have been hearing was that he hates you, he hates you, he hates you. You're going to hell, you're going to hell, you're going to hell, okay? And yes, there's plenty of propaganda out there. There's plenty of news about how the gay, the gay advocates are going to say and do whatever they have to do. They're lying about this, they're lying about that, they're lying about all of these different situations. But before you get angry about that, I want to say this. Before you get angry about that, I want to tell you this. If all you heard your entire life was that God hates you and you're going to hell, for what? For this feeling that you've just felt your entire life and you had no idea why. But I'm going to hell for it regardless, right? You'd be pretty desperate too. You would probably say whatever you had to, do whatever you had to get all these Christian people out of my life, all right? That's all they're hearing. But what does the truth of the church say, okay? It says no. We are to love one another. No. The mere existence of this feeling within you is not a sin in and of itself, okay? There's nothing inherently sinful about that feeling, okay? We're not a church that says you ought to go pray your gay away, okay? We're not the church that says that, okay? We're a church that says seek Christ, seek healing, right? However he heals you is the love of God. And sometimes, yes, you might see that people become straight. I'm not going to put God's love in a box. But what I am going to tell you is that we are not advocates of you ought to pray your gay away, okay? We are to meet each other with love and with understanding at every turn. So is this attraction so far-fetched? Think about it. You are able to be physically attracted to another woman and another man without being gay. Is it really so far-fetched, the idea? Think about that for a minute. You might be attracted to your brother because he's really great at sports. He's really great at this, or he's really great at that. Is it so crazy to go that little extra, that little extra part to become physically attracted, right? Is it really so crazy to think that exists, that happens, right? No, it's not. But these gay brothers and sisters that we have, they have a genuine desire to get that person that they feel that they love to heaven, a genuine desire, okay? That's what they want at the end of the day. It's not all debauchery and perversion, no. Are you kidding me? No. It's a genuine desire to love, right? So what I want to illustrate for you right now is that feeling. Because a lot of times our straight brothers and sisters, they don't know what that feels like. And that's understandable. You're not going to know what it feels like. You're not gay. Right? But in order to reach out to our gay brothers and sisters, you have to have an understanding of what that suffering is. You have to have an understanding of what that desire is, okay? So what I'm telling you right now is there's a genuine desire there to get the person that they love to heaven. That's what they want at the end of the day. That's what we want at the end of the day. And so what you have to understand is the pain that comes with that. The pain that comes with the truth of you cannot love him. You cannot love her the way you think you do. The way you want to, the way you desire to, okay? So when meeting each other, what is it that we have to do? We have to meet each other with love and understanding, okay? You have to think about these sorts of things before you issue some sort of challenge to your gay brothers and sisters. And what I encourage you to do is meet them with love. Love above all else. Again, that's what our faith teaches us. It's a gospel of love and a gospel of understanding. Not a gospel of, let me tell you how you ought to be living your life every second of every moment of every day, right? No. That is not what our faith is about. And you're going to push so many people away from the faith if you do that. Do we have an obligation to stand up for the truth? Yes. But we also have an obligation to love. We have an obligation to prudence, okay? And so when I say this is all that they're hearing. God hates you. You're going to hell. There's no way you can possibly love this person even though you felt this way your entire life, right? Remember that pain that comes with that. And think about it. Put yourself in the opposite situation. Put yourself in their shoes. If that was me and someone said, I ought to change my life, I ought to stop living this way, how are you going to respond to that? But off the bat, without even knowing the person issuing you that challenge, what are you going to say? Are you going to convert to Catholicism? Are you going to say, yeah, I love Jesus, that's it, that's all I needed? No. You're going to probably give them the finger and walk out the door. All right? That's what you're going to do. And when that happens, that's our sin, okay? And we have to be careful of that. And we have to remember the suffering that comes with that. Even for people who have accepted the faith. Even for the people that have acknowledged that Christ is the way, the truth, and the life. Okay? These truths break my heart every single day of my life. All right? It is still hard. And it is a constant reminder. Remember, the people that who are asking to sacrifice are the people that are seeing you get married, are the people that are seeing that in the media, that are seeing it on posters, plastered all over the news, plastered all over the TV. They're seeing this relationship that they cannot have, okay? And I'm telling you all this to illustrate that suffering. You have to have an understanding of that suffering before you can go out and minister to this group of people that have been swept under the rug this whole time, okay? And I'm trying to illustrate to you how their feelings are not so far-fetched, even if you've never felt that way before. It's not so crazy, because at the end of the day, yeah, we are all attracted in one way or another to each other. Physically. Again, physically is not synonymous with sexually, okay? But it's not so far-fetched, and it's not so crazy, and it's a suffering, and it's a lifelong one. So now to my gay brothers and sisters that are sitting out there. I don't know if there are any, but if there are, this is for you. How do we, as gay men and women of Christ, live out our faith, right? So we accept Christ, and now it's easy, and I'm never going to have a sexual urge again, and I'm never going to fall for another guy or girl, right? No. Nope. You're still going to feel that way. You're still going to have these attractions. So what do? How do you live out your faith against temptation, right? Pretty much the same way as any normal person would, okay? So what are you going to do? Avoid instances of sin, right? Don't put yourself in those situations. It's really easy to put yourself in those situations for anybody, for everyone in this room. You know how hard it is, all right? So if we avoid these situations, if we avoid these things that are out there in the media, for those of you that know, delete your Grindr. Get rid of it, okay? A lot of gay people out there that have these sorts of social media outlets for things like hooking up, for things like sex, for things like love, romance, okay? Don't put yourself in those situations. Instead, when you're feeling lonely, when you're feeling like, I need someone right now, I need someone to hold me, to love me, I need to give love, see Christ. And that's hard. And I'm not going to deny that. It's hard, right? Christ isn't there in a way where I can just reach out and touch him physically like I can my friend next to me, right? It's different. You need to grow deeper and more spiritually. So what does that mean? Find a community that supports you and that loves you. Again, here you are, the Catholic community, the fullness of truth. I've not once been hated by any of my Catholic brothers and sisters for this. Not once. Find a community. Because how can you grow a seed of faith in rocky soil? No, your community is that fertile soil that God will help nurture you and grow into your faith. So good. Take home message. My straight brothers and sisters, be prudent. Be prudent in the way that you minister, okay? Do it with love and with understanding. Because there is suffering in this. It is unbelievable suffering, okay? To my gay brothers and sisters, seek Christ, all right? Put him first. Explore the gospel. And remember that we are a faith that is rooted in love.